So this is Hassan Williams, San Diego Hoops Report. We decided to take our interview series that we do. We do the Coaches Insider, where we talk to some coaches. We do 5 questions with coaches, where we ask coaches some questions. We do our get to know series with our class of typically the sophomore class. So we decided to take it to a video format, kind of bring the interviews to life. Now, this was the first time we did it, and as one would expect, the first time you do something like this, there would be some hiccups, and we had some. Starting by, we had a few technical issues with the video. Also, I failed to introduce the guests and just kind of jumped into the conversation, which is a good thing because we just want this to be a conversation. I don't pretend to be a journalist. I'm a basketball coach who was, given a platform by Marlon Wells to just kind of promote kids and programs and just, girls basketball as a whole in San Diego. So that's kind of what we've done. That's kind of taken off. People seem to enjoy it. So we're hoping that we can kind of take it to the next level. So the first one we did was an interview what I did with the head coach of LCAP, Darren Curtis. And we also had the pleasure of having his son, who's an assistant coach and will probably be the head coach of the program in the near future. So we, again, just did a conversation, asked him some questions, very informal, very lighthearted. Again, not pretending to be a journalist in any way, just a coach who likes to talk to other coaches and other kids or about basketball. So when I did the interview, I didn't do a formal introduction of Coach. So we kind of just jump into it and it's us talking. So I wanted to take time to just kind of do a formal introduction of who we interviewed. Again, it was Darren Curtis, head coach at LCAP, going into his 11th season, I believe. Over 190 wins. He sent 11 college kids to play Division I basketball, 2-time CIF runner-up, 2-time took his team to the state playoffs twice. Also coached boys at LCAP, freshman and JV. He has coached all 4 of his kids. He's a graduate of San Diego State. His son Dylan, like I said, is on the coaching staff there. Was part of the staff at San Diego State as well, the women's program. So again, just a little brief intro on the interview I did. Again, it's our first video for what we're now tentatively calling the San Diego Hoops Report ZoomCast. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. You kind of first saw yourself as a coach.
Right after high school, I was playing at Grossmont College, but I volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club to coach a team, and loved it, and changed my major at college from business to education, and changed my whole direction of where I was going just to be around basketball more. Even though I stopped playing, I knew that basketball would always be there.
How would you say, at what point, like with your kids getting involved, did that influence you coaching at all? That the fact that your kids might have been playing, or did your coaching kind of influence them to playing?
I was a coach first, and so they were exposed to it. And kind of the ironic part about it was all of my kids played basketball. I coached all of them, but one goes on to be a better volleyball player and went out for San Diego State's volleyball team. One of them, Jessica, went on to play professional football. And then the other one was better at lacrosse than he was at basketball. So all 3 of them, until my youngest, they were all better at a different sport, but they were exposed to basketball first. So this guy, he's a lot better at coaching than he is playing. In that regard, he's following my footsteps.
Well, that's usually what they say about all the great coaches. They weren't the best players. So I don't know if that's a compliment or a jab there, Dylan. So speaking in terms of coaching, speaking as, asking as somebody who coached their daughter and knowing the challenges that presented, how did you manage that? Did it get easier? Did it get harder? Is it different for boys versus girls? Kind of talk about the challenges that coaching your children presents.
Coaching girls has a different set of parameters that you have to work within. They're team-oriented first, most part. And I really respect that. And so I've actually gravitated towards the girls program, though I have coached in the boys programs. Boys, it's all about me. And the younger you are, the more in high school, you got to spend half your time telling them what they don't know before you can teach them, what you do want them to know. So they don't listen as well. I think we're going to be more stubborn about it. I think the girls are willing to take that in and listen to you and start. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's get started. Coaching all my kids was really not real tough. They are all good kids, and I was coach first. None of them called me dad, or that was never even an issue to them. So
That's always good. I remember one time I was coaching, and it was probably the end of the club season, and one of my kids said, "Hey, I didn't know that Taylor was your daughter." And I said, "Well, that means I was doing a good job if you didn't know that." So
beautiful.
I understand the challenges, and as far as the boys, I always feel like it was the dynamic of watching on TV. It's like for girls, the only real basketball exposure they get is when they're actually playing, as opposed to the YouTube videos and the Sports Center and all that stuff. So I think that definitely makes it a little bit easier on us coaching on the girls' side.
When you're trying to coach from the ground up, the fundamentals from the ground up, girls, you can start with the fundamentals and they'll do it. The boys, what do you mean we don't get to start with around the back dunks?
Exactly. And it's usually with boys, is I noticed too, the external motivation of why they play, maybe to catch the eye of somebody else. Usually with girls, for the most part, they're playing out of a pure love of the game, which again makes it a lot easier on us. How would you describe your philosophy as a coach, or how would an outsider describe the style of play that your teams play?
The style, well, Dylan can speak to that. My style of coaching or my style of play has changed with the personnel that I have.
Great answer, by the way.
I mean, when you got dominant inside players, we play an inside game. We want to slow it down. If you got girls that can get out and run, then you want to press. So that's changed over the years. I think I've learned more from Dylan's inserting of the teaching of the new next level of skills, coming at it from being assistant at San Diego State. I'll let him speak to that.
Yeah, I feel like I have to challenge him more on the offensive end, style-wise. Defense, we've always do what he wants, but offensively, trying to get away from just. I mean, you can do more with the ball now. You can carry. You can travel a little bit, and I feel like you can get more accomplished with more skilled guards. So I feel like that's something that he's never really had before. Yeah, he's never really had super skilled guards. And so his post players have always been extremely dominant. I mean, we're still that way now, but I feel like now as he's evolved into letting them be a little bit more dribble oriented, shoot oriented, and still not as much as other teams comparatively around the county. We don't shoot as much, but still more than what I would say when he used to coach back in the day.
And that brings up my next question. You've been coaching a while. What would you say are some of the biggest differences between when you first started coaching and then kind of how the game is now, whether it be, managing players or just the actual on the court game? Like, what are some of the bigger differences?
I think a couple of the big ones on the court. Yeah, carrying the ball is good dribbling now.
Encouraged.
Yeah, you start off with, let me teach you how to carry this and get away with it. The extra hops and the steps and the Euro steps and all the other stuff, that stuff was illegal when I played, and it was just coming into existence when I started coaching, and I was still coaching against it, complaining about those are travels or that's a carry. And, well, never mind. We're going to teach it now. I would say the biggest difference now is the prominence of travel ball has people shopping, and it is those travel ball coaches that get kids exposure and do a good job are fantastic. McKenzie's a product of that and that exposure, and it's welcomed. It's when the recruiting starts on the coach's side or on the parent side shopping that. What are you in it for? I mean, I thought we were in this for the little kids playing basketball and growing up to see how talented and how much fun they could have. And if their talent was good enough, it's going to take them someplace. And don't get me wrong, the exposure of the travel ball coaches is immense. You got the college coaches will come watch that game versus you have to really make a name for yourself without that. So I think travel ball has been the biggest difference. I think the influence of parents not in it for the reason that's beneficial for the kid, I think is the biggest problem. And I'll speak from a personal experience. I was in high school. I played for Coach Furrow, and he's a hard ass. And he'll say he mellowed in his older age, and I would agree with that. But and I coached just like him. But my dad was opposed to how he was coaching me at the time. And I'll be honest, in retrospect, I think my dad was right. But having, let's say, it's not his position. It's the coach's job. You need to support me. And if you don't do that, even if you're right, it doesn't matter. You didn't put the kid first or what's in the best interest of the child because you have some other agenda. Well, then the kid's stuck in the middle. Do I do what the coach says or do I go home to do what dad says? And you can do that, but you can take the enjoyment out of it for everybody involved. And so that's something I learned early on to stay out of that. And so I don't micromanage what my kids do. My daughter wants to go away to college. Well, she earned that. That wasn't because of me. And I'd rather see her stay here so I could watch her. But do you? I mean, that's what you want and that's where you're at. Then let me support you however far your talents. Everybody's going to have their career's going to come to an end at some point. Enjoy it along the way.
Dylan, I'm going to ask you, how from your perspective, how have you seen your dad maybe change or adapt kind of with the changes?
I would honestly, I'll go off of what I got to interview a lot of alumni. I did that little interview segment off of our personal platform at the high school. And just speaking with them of his intensity, I wouldn't say is where it was, but his passion more towards you as a player has grown. And so I feel like there's still that in the thought of like, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it his way. But at the same time, understanding like each girl's needs is definitely something that I think is a huge growth of just of what I've seen of him. Cause I was a little kid when he was coaching, and I mean, that vein on his forehead that everyone talks about was a thing. It's a thing. It really is. It really is a thing. And sometimes you find games where you'll see that. But I think the girls now have like a better balance of understanding, and times are different. Parents don't allow you to coach the way that ideally he may want to have coached. And that's just part of the adaptation and kind of going back to what he was just saying earlier. But as far as what he kind of does with our team, I mean, I don't know that I've ever been around. I've been around a lot of different things. I've coached boys 2 years ago. I was at San Diego State. I went around girls. I coached young, like infant kid, like toddlers, and coaching now middle school, running a club and doing all that. And still at the same time, out of all the coaches I've came across, no one that connects with their players better, truthfully.
Excellent compliment. You
I
mentioned
I can say, but the camera's on, so I'm just going to go ahead
smart
and stop.
man. We'll save that for the uncut version of the interview. Speaking of your club program, how did that come about? Like, kind of, what was the motivation behind that? And then, just to kind of talk about how that other, that what am I trying to say? That having that club in place, how that impacts your program, how you guys are able to benefit from having that club program in place.
First, you go first.
Well, it started because there's no basketball in Lakeside. There's the high school gym that they won't let little kids in anyway. I teach at the middle school. I would stay after school and get kids to come out and play, boys and girls. And I was the nice Coach Curtis there, and they would fall in love with the game, much the way I fell in love with it when I started on the playground, and then come to the high school and where I could push them and challenge them. And so there's such a need for it. There's no other basketball in Lakeside. So I did that the first go around. I got away from basketball and came back to it. We started it up again when our daughter, Dylan's sister, was coming through McKenzie. And then he was a part of that, and now he's taken that over. And the funny story, so we started a team so she had somebody to play with. I had to pay for her to go up to Seoul to play travel ball as a sixth grader, while I was on the playground with little kids trying to, sixth graders learning how to play basketball so she could have a team to play with in high school. So it's come full circle, and then now Dylan's been running it ever since. So, and going back to like what he said too, is like, this is not, although it's now a different name, the same idea was there back in 2000 to 06. Allison Duffy, Ashley Duffy, Heather Molson, Jessica Cable, Mallory Burke, Valley, all of them went through the same similar program, same feeder team style, as you're literally just outside on the outdoor blacktop at the middle school, and you got all the Lakeside kids and they're coming to high school, and it worked out well his first time. And so we're just kind of doing it the same now, but at the same time, it's different now. So like as what I'm experiencing is
as a feeder program, I'm having to compete with EB. I'm playing you guys, and I'm playing EBO as 7th graders and 8th graders, and playing Seoul and playing all these great teams around San Diego is really helped build us, because they're all 7 out of the 8 kids on my top team go to the same middle school, and then the other one goes to the other Lakeside school. So when you build it the old-fashioned way, I would say, it feels like you're investing more into the future, where you're not like, okay, I have this team for 4 months and let's see what we can do. So it definitely gets you more invested, which kind of changed my career paths as well, from wanting to pursue college and being there for a year. Coming back, I was just more focused on doing it right and building it from the ground up. And so kind of taking everything that he did, we started that way. We actually used to have boys. He had a girls team and I had a boys team. And then I saw the girls that listened. I'm like watching his practice the whole time. I'm like, oh, they listen. No, we're going to go ahead and drop the boys and we'll start with girls. So we've kind of built it up, and it's bigger than it was, but still nothing compared to elite name travel ball people. But I'm just trying to get my kids to go to high school, because at the high school level, if I didn't do that, we would have nobody, truthfully. So doing that, and then being able to send Mackenzie off to play for people like you, and be able to do that. I mean, that's something that all Ashley Duffy, Allison Duffy, all the great D1 players our school has seen did the very similar thing, but it has to start somewhere. So our club program really is kind of that start for a lot of youth in Lakeside, just because girls basketball is just not a thing out here. So that's really what our focus has been.
I think that's a great description of kind of how a youth program should work. You coach them up when they're young, and you have those ones that maybe can take that next step. How did you make that decision specifically with Mackenzie for her to come play for us, and kind of because it's not easy. I know as a dad, you're always going to think that you know what's best and you're the best coach, but I had to make a similar choice before my daughter was young. So how was the thought process behind, okay, you take them?
That was first off, it wasn't my choice. That was hers. Let's be clear on that one. But it was just like when I had to pay her to go to Seoul and got great coaching. Coach Harris up there did kept her love for the game alive. Gave her another person to take care of that. While I was in sixth grade, and sent her off as a junior to go do it with you guys at EBO. It was priceless to have somebody chewing her butt because she didn't listen, and sit your butt on the bench because you're not listening. Because in high school, the reality is you can't do that sometimes, because then you're throwing the game if you don't, and you can't. It puts things out of balance. And so for her to get that voice, it's like that commercial. It's like, EBO costs this amount of money, and her jerseys and her shoes and all this money. I go, but having somebody else yell at your kid and bench her, priceless.
Mm-hmm. And having seen you at some of those games, I definitely can attest to how much I can tell you enjoyed watching her get yelled at by some of those coaches too. So definitely something I got to see firsthand. So let's kind of speak on kind of what's going on with your team now. So before we actually get into the specifics of some of your roster, I wanted to ask you about how we're obviously in an extremely unique time in our country in terms of the pandemic, and then the changes in the fights for social justice. How have you guys kind of managed that climate in terms of dealing with your athletes and the kind of conversations you guys are having in terms of, like I said, everything that's going on, and any challenges or maybe any good news stories that you can share about, kind of how the last 4 or 5 months have been?
Honestly, the hit of the pause button on the rat race of what we do in basketball and the coaching, the season, and travel ball to what you're doing has been refreshing. It's given the girls a chance to really realize what they miss and what they're there for, or not there for. And it's really defined. I mean, it's defined or refocused why I want to be there, and not whether or not we're going to have a season or not. It's that I don't get to come into the gym with these young people who are just giving their all to a cause that's bigger than themselves. What more could you ask? So that part has been refreshing. The social platform, I think the pause allowed us all to take a deep look at it, and I hope everybody keeps looking at it. I think it's making us stronger, those that will take the look at what's going on. socially, the injustices. I think it's going to make us better people for doing that. And if enough people will do that, then I think this makes us a better society.
I can concur on that. And I just got to give a shout out to our athletes, because they do such a great job of putting out their best foot on social media. And nowadays that's number one in the world. And the importance of what people see about you. That's something that the people are going to look at. And so people that are putting their foot out, and standing up to those type of social injustices, I think is super important. And it's something that all of our kids are done. We've done as coaches. We did a couple Zooms and FaceTimes with them in the heat of all this with that. And then basketball wise, we actually we started like a little mini like program about 2 months into quarantine, where we just kind of sent out every single week. Here's something we want you to think about. Here's an article we want you to read. And then here's 3 physical activities we want you to do today. And just kind of challenging that mental toughness. And then as well as, okay, yeah, we want the basketball workouts. But at the end of the day, we really wanted them thinking a little bit more outside of themselves and more about society in general. So talking about like the social injustices or how to keep better health in the pandemic, and just kind of giving them small mental tasks, because I know at first they were just like, what do we do? Like, we're on Zoom and our grades aren't really there. So like I feel like they needed those little tasks, and so creating like a time frame of when they needed to do things, and rolling out a program where conditioning strength was something every single one of our kids we did it for 2.5 months. And not one kid missed one day. And it was the most impressive thing I've seen, is just being able to roll something out that I think kind of kept them more accountable, not only on the basketball sense, but like as a member of society.
Awesome. I as a coach, that was actually a selfish question, because that's something that I've kind of struggled with our program, is just being able to reach out. You don't want to reach out too much, because you don't know, when you're not seeing them every day, you don't really have that same sense of kind of what's going on with them like you do during the high school season, when you can tell when they walk in the gym, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about it. So I appreciate that feedback. How has the delay in the schedule, or kind of the unknown of where we may be, hopefully we're playing in the spring, but what kind of steps have you guys taken towards, scheduling, planning? I know, again, for me and Dylan talked about, setting up our game last night. It's been a real struggle for me to really, focus on the schedule. Like, I obviously, getting the kids to work out I'm all in. I can go to the gym every day. But whenever a coach will ask about a schedule, it's like it's not even something that I can really believe is reality yet. You know what I mean? So when I'm getting these tournament requests and say, hey, playing my tournament 6 months from now, I'm like, hey man, I don't know. So kind of how have you dealt with that philosophy or that unknown?
I'm exactly where you are, and I almost feel, because I've never felt this way before, I feel like I'm not doing my job. Like I should be caring about that, but that's not where I'm at right now. I care more about the health of where the girls are at. He's on the side of we got to get the schedule redone and everything. I mean, we already had it done. Playing you and everybody else that we were
exactly. Yeah.
And the tournament set up. In fact, we lose 2 tournaments that we're going to host. There's so many more things now that I'm thinking about besides those games that I need to do. And so he's been picking up the pieces on that part of it. And again, I'm not there, and I feel weird about it. I don't know another way to say it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I feel better then, because I thought this was just old timers. It's time to get out if you're not going to do your scheduling. And I'm like, well, what's a good schedule going to look like? And I'm not talking competition. I'm talking making through the season. Everything we're doing, and without fans there, if you're hosting a game, it's going to cost you. And so, I mean, is the team you're playing, are they following the same guidelines you're playing? I mean, are we all going to be safe or not? I mean, so
that's something that I've worked even more than last year with our boys coaches, trying to coordinate as many games as we can together, just because, if we're going to be in the gym, might as well have, both teams, cut down on travel and stuff. But, that's just something, one of the many things that, like I said, just kind of trying to figure out where we're going to be 6-7 months from now. What about you, Dylan? He says you seem to be the one that's, working on the schedule and that kind of stuff. How's that process been for you?
I'm the young, optimistic, hoping. I also coach our varsity boys volleyball team, so I have that season first, and I'm head coaching that. So I'm trying to pick those pieces up now, and I'm just trying to schedule it as optimistically as I can, whether it does or not, or things have to get switched around or scheduled. But just to kind of have some sense of security of like, okay, this is a plan at least that I can roll forward. And maybe there are changes, but trying to keep the optimistic hope, because I don't want to just like, oh, I'm just going to put it off or wait. But just like he said, it is weird, but I'm just trying to have that more the positive outlook of like, it's going to happen. And then and just to hopefully try to manifest it, I guess. But that's kind of been my mindset, trying to get that going forward. But everyone's in the exact same boat. No one wants to say yes yet. So
yeah.
So it kind of is one of those things, but just doing our best to be. I'm just a firm believer in like something I learned this summer just by watching like a lot of famous college coaches and talking. I had a couple talks with Marlon and just coaches I really look up to, and interviewing Coach Stacey Terry was just being the best at where you're at. And so like as long as we're kind of being the best at where we are right now, then I think that's kind of all we can ask our athletes to do as well. So it's just kind of something I've kind of thought about. And if the best we can do right now is contact a coach and he says maybe, then that's the best that we can do. And I think that's kind of the best thing going forward, is just being the best where we are.
I think that's a great approach and great advice. Again, for coaches like myself and your dad that are, really kind of, struggling with this process. All right. So talking about the upcoming season, you guys, you won 18 games, regular season or total. I'm looking at your max preps now. I know you bring back a ton. So what kind of expectations do you have outside of the obvious, unknowns we have, but just overall, what kind of feel do you have for your team, and kind of what expectations do you have for the upcoming season?
We have a group of girls that just love coming to the gym. And so not being able to be there through the quarantine part has made them know why they want to be at the gym. They're such a close-knit group of friends. We'll really have we got a handful of seniors and a handful of freshmen coming in, and it's really going to be a fun season watching these freshmen learn these things. And the beauty of it is that the seniors they are laughing at themselves at the mistakes. I mean, they can see they're so far removed from those mistakes that they get it. And so it's like having 5 coaches on the court. It's so much fun watching them work with these incoming freshmen that are they're pretty talented in their own right, but have a long way to go to learn what our returners have. Dylan can speak to you about the outlook on the season. I don't know if we're playing, so that's going to be
No, I think at this point in time, it's kind of as a coach now. You got 5 seniors that have started every single game since their freshman year. You're not looking at anything different than you looked at in 2017. We just kind of have to have the approach that this is their year to do it. And so last year, I felt like freshman year he was the most intense, and then has backed off just as they have kind of progressed and knowledge and learned a lot more. I think is super, super cool to just watch them just do their thing. Like they get to the gym and they just start grinding on their own. Like him and I could be mid-conversation 15 minutes into practice, and they have started one-on-0 workouts, ball handling, all that stuff on there. They just come in and get it done. And so having a group like that you can trust. I mean, I'm talking with some college coaches this summer, just the team that has the best system and that has the fielding the most returners that know it is going to end up with more success, because everyone's at the exact same level right now. No one's getting that 5-on-5 look right now. No one gets that. So I think a team with a system and a team with kids that can get it done is definitely going to be where we're at.
The reality of where we're at, though, is I'm just happy if we have a season. So that's
exactly
everything. If we have this game right now, I'm so thankful. I don't care if we win or not. We got the chance to compete and play. Did we do our best? And let's do better next time. This is my last go round as a head coach, and what a way to go into it. But man, it put it in perspective. What we end up with is record wise is irrelevant. It's the process of getting through this season. How many games do we get? How many practices do we get to have? Do we get to have any? Are we going to have to wear a mask to make it happen? I mean, I would do anything to have this opportunity. So how our season's going to, if we get to have one, is going to be the most special one of all time. So that's how I would.
It's funny because I took over last year, my first year as the head coach, and I remember I took over a little bit late. It was August. So I remember all season I kept thinking, well, I'm just looking forward to next summer when I'll have an off season going into the year, and here we go. Right, this off season was even worse than the one I had last year, so it's definitely been a challenge. So I'd like to talk about a couple of kids on your roster, not named Mackenzie Curtis to start. I know, obviously, this is my bias disclosure. I do have a very close relationship with some of your kids, obviously Mackenzie, and another kid that I've had a chance to work with this offseason is JC Danks. So kind of talk about what you're expecting from her this upcoming season.
She's going to have some growth because she's chosen to do basketball now. She was playing it because she was big, and those kids usually feel pushed into it. And she was so nice, she couldn't say no to it. And so if your passion for it isn't there, then it's work. And how long is that going to last? You're not getting paid for it. But she's kind of fallen. She's found herself with these girls on the team who have accepted her for who she is. And now she's willing to put it out there. She's a hard worker. She's just got so much to learn, and she's got such an upside to her now that she's committed to playing basketball at all. And then for you guys at the next level, she's just such a sweetheart. And now her little sister's going to join us this year too.
She's the kind of kid that always asks questions, which is, as a coach, is something you want. She's always saying, well, what could I have done here? Or, what did I do wrong here? And that's what you want, as opposed to when you're trying to give those instructions and you're getting 9 million different excuses. Another player, we actually we had her on our all defensive team last year. It's Cheyenne, right? Is it Cheyenne? Yeah. She's one of my favorites. As a coach, I love those kids that do all the dirty work, and she's definitely one of those kids. Talk about kind of her development and what you expect from her this upcoming season.
She's one of the ones that walked on the playground at school, and she walked up to me, not knowing who I was, and says, "Who's the basketball coach here at this school?" And I said, "Why do you want to know?" And she says, "Well, he needs to know who I am." It's a big word. I said, "Oh, why is that?" She goes, "Well, I play basketball." I go, "Where have you played?" She goes, "Well, I shot at my elementary school." I'm like, okay, let me find out who the coach is for you, and I'll get back to you. And so she's a sweetheart. She's a hard worker. She's overcome some challenges in the classroom that I'm really, really proud about. Her hard work in that area, as much as I am on the court, where she's come from somebody who's never played to she's a senior leader point guard and tough as nails on defense. But she's just a person you root for, and she's going to go play at Grossmont. Dylan.
We're super excited for her. I mean, her freshman year, you mentioned college and her future was just not something we could even put together. I mean, we were struggling. We struggled with her academically, and just to see where she's at right now is absolutely the most brightest spot in my coaching career so far. Outside of JC going to school, obviously, I think was a big accomplishment as well. But just the fact that she wants to do it at the next level, and just the fact that college is now a thought in her mind, and she's going to do it. And she's told Coach Kyra she's coming and next year, and she's just kind of ready to just put it past her and just get ready for her senior year and kind of see where it plays out. But she's just an absolute dog when she plays, and watching the way she fights on defense and her aggression on offense is something that I don't know that I'll ever coach a kid that tough mentally and physically ever. I don't know. She's a pretty tough kid.
Give me, Dylan, this one's for you. Give me a couple other kids that people of the county may not know and should know that might be flying under the radar for you guys.
For us, we got a freshman, Amaya Tone. She's an incoming freshman. She's a quick slasher, downhill point guard for us. Distributes the ball pretty well. Obviously, Natalie, or JC's little sister, Natalie, pure shooter. We think that she's going to fill in our corner shooter role pretty well. We always have a corner shooter, so we're looking to dial her in there this year. So she can shoot the ball pretty well. But as far as coming up and what we have, I mean, Kaylee Cole, obviously our sophomore, won us 2 league games this year, hands down by herself. But that's kind of our next big face of the program, is just that, because after her, we've only got 1 junior on the roster, and then Kaylee's a sophomore, and then the 4 incoming freshmen, but 2 of them that can really, really do something offensively. So as far as our high school goes, those are the kids that we have, and we're hoping to continue at the D1 level. You're getting rid of a number one scorer in San Diego two years in a row. It's going to be hard to compete at that level, but hopefully we have the athletes to do that and compete at that level. Because let me tell you, losing 26 points a game and 10 assists and 10 rebounds, that's going to be hard to compete. I don't care with 5 kids or 6, just let alone just losing one of them. So losing 5 kids is going to be definitely a quick reset, but I'm confident in the fact that our underclassmen and our incoming freshmen and our youth kids are ready to do the job.
Not to mention, the amazing leadership she brings to the court. So this is definitely another one of those disclosure moments where if I was accused of being biased when it comes to Mackenzie Curtis, I'll definitely own that. I'm a tremendous fan of her, not only as a player but as a kid. Last summer was the first summer I had a chance to even be around her. She's a joy. Darren, you mentioned earlier, her getting yelled at and coached really hard, and it doesn't get much harder than Marlon Wells and Chris Croce, and they were really hard on her. Not because it was her, but just because they're hard on everybody. And I think, she responded to it well. How did we get here with her? Like, was she always a basketball junkie? Was she a late bloomer? Kind of talk about how she got to where we are.
The best story ever.
I want to hear it.
She didn't want anything to do with basketball. She would come to the games and she would go watch when Dylan was playing his little kids games or her older brother or sister were playing. And she would be the kid that you had to tell to get off the court. Not that she was playing, because she was walking on the court and she knew she was. And so she would turn around backwards. And she would get backwards onto the court. Like that didn't, like to a 2-year-old, like that doesn't count or something. No, that's still not listening to what I'm telling you. So with her, you had to take a different approach when she was younger. She was, so her, when I knew that I was going to get back into coaching, I had been out of it. I was doing youth stuff with him. We were at outside court practicing, watching him, and we're on the side court. And we started a contest of keeping score of how many times she could just barely get it to the basket, of what the score would be. A point for me if you miss and a point for you if you made it. By the end of practice, she had shot 1,000 shots. The score is 750 for her and 250 for me. And once I told her, he said, you get 2 points if you hit it off the backboard, which I don't think that's true. But then all of a sudden she's just backboarding them in. And there's something about her when she's keeping score of personally. She doesn't keep score of her points like in a game. That's not how she does it. But like on the shoot away, there's a trance that comes over her. It's really a special quality. None of my other kids were exposed to basketball, and they might practice. I mean, they would go to practice, and they might practice on their own if I helped them. But they wouldn't sit there for hours just shooting. And it's just who she's become, and she gets that from her grandfather, Dylan's grandfather. He had that with golf. I mean, to me, every golf swing for me is a brand new. I'm an athlete. I'm going to swing this differently. But no, to be a great golfer, it's every swing has got to become exactly the same. And to me, that's boring. But to her, she's a great shooter because of it. I've never seen anything like it. Her workouts in the gym. That's not taught. You can't push that as a parent. Otherwise, my other 3 kids would be doing the same thing. That's just who she is. So,
and she accomplished some pretty great things. I mean, just in the off season, what she tries to do. Her freshman year, her off season, she broke her hand, and so she became our best free throw shooter left-handed. And then her sophomore year, she became our best 3-point shooter. After her freshman year, her going into her sophomore year, she became our best 3-point shooter. Her and Jordan Grandy just went at it every day in practice. I'm gonna I'm gonna camp on the shoot away, and you're gonna camp over there. And we're gonna go at it until I beat you. And then last year, she became our best free throw shooter. She made like 110 in a row in practice. And then this off season, what she's been able to get in the gym, she's shooting 777 out of 1,000 3-pointers. I mean, 77.7% out of 1,000 shots is nothing you could ever even imagine. And she gets to go to college because of it. And I think that's a unique quality I admire about her. And that my little kids, man, when Mackenzie shows up at practice, they are laser focused every time. Mackenzie says one word, and it's like God's talking to them. And just to have that person that just really holds everything together, she's it. I hope she doesn't watch this, but she's it. She holds it. She holds it all together. She does.
And so you got a chance to coach her, and she's a coach's dream on the court and off the court with the other girls on the team. There's no prima donna. It's not about me. And she's a parent's dream. You get a chance to watch that. And I honestly have not got a chance to enjoy it because I'm trying to win the game. And so I'm so proud of her, and I don't get to say that enough. I want to make sure I say that here. But her off the court in New Mexico will tell you is why, as much as her shooting, is why they picked her. I mean, why they wanted her.
And I think what you said is important because I don't think enough kids and unfortunately enough parents understand that as much as they're recruiting a basketball player, they're recruiting a person. So it has to be, everything has to be included, and also they're recruiting you as parents too. So I think it's important to understand that everything you do matters on the court, off the court. That's something that I always try to preach to the kids, especially when we're doing club. That when you're really knowing you're trying to impress a coach. For instance, I always tell my kids, coaches are watching you warm up. Like they can pick up a lot about who you are as a player or just in the layup line. And I know for the most part that's one of those things that goes in one ear and out the other. But I know for me, I can tell there's certain kids that if I haven't seen them, I'm watching the layup line. I'm like, okay, she could probably play, or that her aura, her confidence. So I think, and Mackenzie, that kind of kid, I definitely can speak to what you're saying, Dylan, too, in terms of her influence. Because I was going to ask, I see it with how the kids that we had in the summer kind of felt about her. How do you see it in terms of her leading by example? How that influences other teams on the roster or the kids on the roster?
They truthfully, she's been around it so long, and that she's such a caring person. I'll tell you right now, she's way more caring than me or him combined. She really cares about other people, and I'm not saying that we don't, but she does it in a way that she wants truthfully the absolute best for that person. And so finding a way to motivate that teammate that's struggling with whatever it may be. I could tell you that every teammate on her team thinks that if they have to pick a teammate that they want them to hold them together, is Mackenzie. And her best friend growing up, Stephanie Yackel, our other assistant coach's daughter, them two together of just what they've built around them and the way they are as people, just being able to build that since they're in kindergarten, those two have played together, and growing up, they just kind of created that synergy around them that like, we're here and we're all together and we're going to do this. And it's a lot of people say together, but like those two truly, truly mean it. And so to have those type of people that just create that synergy of like sucking you into a positive environment is huge. And it goes even further down to the youth kids as well. I mean, in one of my interviews, we talked to Bally, and she was coached by Coach Stacy Terry at the middle school level when Stacy was in high school. And so at El Cap, there's just a lot of that tradition of like reaching that hand down and pulling up that next kid. But as far as kids on our roster now, they really do a good job of creating that synergy of being here for the right reasons. And I think that truthfully is taught by him, because I believe the same thing too.
That's not an accident though, because when you're out on the playground, you're cheering for every one of them. I'm good Coach Curtis and come out and play basketball. Well, I ran off the ones that didn't want to play. And then Dylan had a little girl on her team. She had to do a book report, a speech to a class, to a woman in her life that's inspired her. So she came dressed in her basketball uniform and wrote a speech about Mackenzie. And I don't know, she was in fourth grade, writing a speech about how this person has changed her outlook on life. I was like, wow, everybody else is doing, Michelle Obama or somebody. And I'm like, wow, you're affecting people you don't know it.
So you mentioned Michelle Obama. Part of the bio I got from your publicist was that you met the former president. How did that come about, and what's the story behind that?
I teach at the middle school, and I'd stopped coaching and focused on my teaching. I was doing some really innovative things in PE, physical education, and I got picked by my district, and then you go to the county and there's interviews and you write these papers and stuff, and they announced it to the school that I got chosen by our district to go represent at the thing. But when you do Teacher of the Year, there's like 20 pages of essays you have to write out and do all this interviews and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And the little girl in my class stood up and challenged me. Says, what do you mean you're not going to do that? You represent us. go write those essays. You make me run. You push me to do this. I'm on a diet. My family's eating right. I have to, all this other stuff. Anyway, I get teacher of the year at San Diego, yada, yada, yada. And then I go up to the state and I get teacher of the year for the state. And I go back to DC and I one of the finalists for national teacher of the year. And I get to meet Obama. It was the night before they got Bin Laden. And the night of Bin Laden. So I was giving a speech in Long Beach, and my family had flown to DC for me to do the award ceremony and all this other stuff. Well, I show up in DC and I get out of the plane and drive by in the taxi, and there's a party. It looked like New Year's Eve going off.
Thought it was for you.
Oh my God! I've arrived, and they were hanging out the cards with American flags, and they had announced that night that they had gotten him, and then the next day. Or the day after, we ended up going to the White House and meeting him, and he was so gracious with his time and amazed. Will you go grab that picture real quick? Just real quick. Not that one. Not of me. The one of you. So when I go to the office, we're waiting in line to go meet him in the Oval Office, and I go up to him and I go to shake his hand, and I go, Mr. President, this is the greatest honor of my life, but I need to talk to your wife. And he lost it. He lost it, and they told us we weren't supposed to bring stuff in, but I snuck a picture. Mackenzie used to keep this picture in her desk at school.
Oh, wow.
Just in her desk because that was her she was 4 at the time, 5 at the time.
When she had her surgery.
Yeah, when she had her surgery. So he was talking about healthcare, so she was really into this healthcare idea. And so I pulled this out of my shirt. I said, hey, can we get this picture of you and me, Mr. Obama, with so she knows I brought you a picture. He goes, no. He pulls a Sharpie out, and he says, let me sign it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So to Mackenzie, dream the dream, Barack Obama. I mean, he was just so generous with his time that it was the greatest honor of my life to be able to represent the kids back in my class that were sitting there on the playground doing what I'm asking them to do and challenge them.
That was me. I was in his class when he got this.
To be up there to make it to back there. It was the honor is not what I was in for. That girl was right though. I represent them, and it was a joy.
Awesome story. So I want to wrap up with some lighthearted stuff, kind of how we had started doing this thing with different coaches. We call it 5 questions per coach. So I'm going to start with some easy ones, and we'll do each of you answer. So the first one, I'll start with you, Dylan. Favorite basketball movie?
My favorite movie growing up all time, Space Jam.
Good answer. How about you, Coach?
Not a basketball movie. Favorite movie, sports, Cinderella Man.
Okay, another exit. The thing about good sports movies, they kind of cross off, they cross, all genres, and you can always find lessons. So there's never really a wrong answer with a sports movie.
Well, then the other one I do in school, the one I teach at school though is Remember the Titans.
So my mom and I probably quote that movie 4 or 5 times. Every other conversation, somehow we have a quote from that movie that makes it into the conversation. So again, another great choice.
Back door to my lesson plan. Every time the background music plays, I tell the kids there's an essay question coming. So just next time you watch the movie, every time the background music plays, Denzel Washington's giving you the prompt, and then the kids write about it. It's the best lesson plan I have as a teacher.
I think my favorite quote is attitude reflects leadership, Captain. That's one I've used a lot too. So yeah. Dylan, you're up. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Has to be Mexican food.
Okay, Coach.
It would have been pizza, but I gave it up. It's my go-to since quarantine is acai bowls.
A man after my daughter's own heart. She probably has 2 or 3 of those a day.
Me too.
Next one, we'll start with you again, Dylan. You can't say your dad. That way you don't get in trouble for not saying your dad. Yeah. Favorite coach of all time?
Favorite coach of all time? There's a couple. A classic would be probably John Wooden, but most recently probably I'm drawing a blank on his name too. He's a coach at South Carolina, men's coach.
He used to be at Kansas State.
Yeah, man, I'm drawing a blank on me.
Too. I'm sure I'll get killed for this one. Frank Martin.
I'll have you an answer in 30 seconds. Wait, what is it?
Martin. Frank
Yeah,
Martin.
Nick Martin. Yeah.
Got it. How about you, Coach?
No, I got to go all the way back to my playground. Bob Campbell was on my playground. He was out. Nobody's gonna know who he is. In fact, he's passed away. But he was out there with us kids, and I thought he was the greatest coach of all time.
Awesome. And then we'll go back to you, Coach. What is a dream vacation for you?
Dream vacation for me.
I'm already gonna know.
We got 5 tournament games someplace. You pick.
Every year we end up on a vacation in a basketball tournament. Every year we somehow end up in a basketball tournament over his weekend of his birthday. Yeah, I'm like, this is weird. Every time,
Palm Springs, Vegas. We were supposed to go to Hawaii this year. Well, I doubt that's not happening now. But Vegas, it doesn't matter. Those are my vacation stops.
See, that's what happens when you're the son of a coach. It's always going to be basketball all the time. How about you, Dylan? Dream vacation?
Mine would have to be somewhere tropical. I love the beach, so I went to my dream. I kind of went on a dream vacation. I went to Thailand. That was amazing. So somewhere tropical like that. Hawaii,
and then we'll the last one here. We'll say we'll start with you, Dylan. Give me your all-time favorite basketball player.
All-time favorite basketball player. I'll be really honest. I'm a huge I follow the women's game more than I will follow the men, so I got to go with the women. Either A, Kelsey Plum, because she's the most recent, also a San Diego kid, as well as just an amazing leader and chose a college that wasn't big named and brought it big names. So I take a lot of I respect a lot of people who go out on a limb and pick the unbeaten path. So someone like that, I'd have to say, and then Sue Bird probably. Sue Bird would be my number one.
Coach?
Growing up, it was Magic Johnson, but I'm honestly not a fan of the game itself per se. But I will point out, I would have to change now. I've never cried when somebody famous has died until Kobe died, and so I had to do some. So why did it hit me so hard this year? He was a girl's dad. I mean, it wasn't because he was a great basketball player. It was because he was going to a tournament. It could have been me driving. I don't have a helicopter. It could have been me driving on the 15 up to that same tournament up at his place at the Mamba. So I don't know what it was. It wasn't his on the court stuff. I'm honestly I'm not a fan of basketball per se. As much as I was of the person that he was becoming.
I think I could definitely relate in terms of the impact of. I think when you talk about in terms of his relationship with the girls' game, right before his passing, I think just having been to the Mamba Academy and kind of seeing some of the stuff I had seen, you could tell it was genuine. It wasn't do something because that it's going to be popular. It's going to get you, help with your PR. It was a genuine love for the game, and I think when you listen to a lot of the WNBA players talk about him, they really felt his loss because they really saw him becoming a champion for the women's game that the game sorely needs, especially the WNBA not getting nearly the amount of love it gets. So I think those feelings you express are probably similar to a lot of feelings that a lot of people different have. So, well, I want to thank you guys so much. You guys again were our inaugural Zoom. We're going to call it the ZoomCast, or our inaugural ZoomCast with the San Diego Hoops Report. A well overdue interview. Dylan and I talk quite often, so it was good to be able to get both of you here together for this. Like I said, this inaugural interview. So I appreciate your time. I wish you guys both the best luck of the season. And I'll tell you this, Dylan, when you were describing your team, you weren't helping the case for me to want to go ahead and schedule that game. So
I still need one. Hey,
that scouting report was so good. Now I'm really, really scared.
I'm open.
Hey, I admire the work you do with the travel ball and at the high school and your position there. And I thought you did with what you coming in with the way you did and what you had to deal with. I very impressed. Very impressed.
Well, appreciate that. Checks in the mail, but I appreciate that. Hey, you guys have a great afternoon, and hopefully we'll get this posted up real soon. And like I know, again, I can't thank you enough for the time. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yes, thank you.